Today's episode is brought to you by Mazars.
SoundCartel.
Are you reluctant to deal with government departments? Well, if you're doing the right thing, you shouldn't be. From SoundCartel, I'm Nicole Goodman, and this is Business Essentials Daily. Elaine Abery, Director of Unravelling Red Tape, is an expert in helping businesses deal with government departments. And she says that even the smallest businesses can approach bureaucrats if they have a valid complaint. She's talking to Jeff Waters, and she starts by outlining the types of red tape that businesses can face.
All the decisions that government makes impact businesses. And I guess I'll kind of start with a little bit of background, is that large businesses are talking to government all the time. So to help them get the best quality decisions from government, so that what happens is when the laws are passed, that it actually works in the way that it's meant to and doesn't impede the operations or cost too much money to implement. But what that means is a lot of small business owners don't have the time for that, and most people don't actually even know that it's possible, or they think that, for example, if you engage with government, that you're going to get yourself in trouble, and it's absolutely not the case. So the kind of things they have is, sometimes I've got a client where government, they just made a decision that went totally against all of their policies and procedures and what government's actually meant to do. And it really impacted on this small business. So we went back and had those conversations with government and said, hey, well, guys, let's just check, like, this is what your policies and procedures say. Why didn't you do it that way? Initially, you get a little bit of pushback from them because they don't like to admit they're wrong, just like everybody else. But once we got through it, then they sat down and had a conversation and said, okay, how can we make this work? And that's basically what it is. I've got another small business client where, again, government just and big businesses, they just don't think about small business and how it impacts them. And then it's a matter of putting up your hand and putting up your hand in the right way. So that's the thing. I guess for me, my job is to make it as easy as possible for government to make the right decision so that they're not causing you harm, so that they're not making small business owners do twice or three times the amount of paperwork that you're already doing just to get a result that you were already getting. Because often it's big businesses doing the bad stuff, and then small business kind of just gets caught up in the fray. And small business often just doesn't have that voice, or they don't have the power, or they don't know that they can talk to government about this kind of thing.
So what you just described was an instance where it was basically government malpractice by the sounds of it. They did the wrong thing through their own procedures, but if there's a law there that is hindering or impeding a small business, how can they go about lobbying government for that?
So the main thing always, it's when I see people, often they've gotten to the point, they've talked to government, they've got very angry, they've tried to meet the local member and things like that, which sometimes can be counterproductive. What you need to do is sit back and do it logically. So get a night's sleep, get a week's sleep, whatever, and don't go necessarily to government first. Sit there and think about it and get examples. Say, okay, well, before you made this law, I was spending an hour a week, for example, doing the paperwork that you need. So say it's iCare or workers' comp, we'll just use that as an example. I was spending an hour a week doing it. And now you've made this change and you're getting the same result, but I'm spending 3 hours a week doing your paperwork, and that's just dumb, basically. So if you can get some information and some data like that and then present it to them. And I say when you're dealing with government, always give them a piece of paper, because nobody's memory is flawless. No matter how photographic your memory is, you have like all this stuff going on the day and it gets mixed up. So give them a piece of paper which summarises in dot points, one sheet, no more, of what you're saying. Like, you know, beforehand it was 1 hour a week, now it's 3 hours a week, same result. Here's some suggestions to make it better. Here's some suggestions to undo that. And sometimes the suggestion might be, and government does this frequently, is give small businesses either more time for the law change, or give them an exemption, or give them a different way of complying. So government's used to doing that. It's just a matter of asking, because if you're not there talking, I guess I was having this conversation with one of my friends. He's a former staffer of one of the Prime Ministers. And the thing is, people think when they're dealing with government that everyone in government, all the bureaucrats basically know everything, and they don't. They don't know how things are going to impact your business. So you need to tell them, and don't assume that they were trying to do bad things to you, because they're generally not. They generally want to do the right thing, and particularly they actually want to do the right thing by small businesses who are doing the right thing. And, you know, again, people say, well, why isn't government out there? And it's like, well, let's just take an example. If you had your local minister for small business or your minister for employment or whatever issue was infecting you, and they came and sat in your local shopping centre for an hour a week asking people what their problems were, well, everyone would go, oh, well, obviously he doesn't have enough work. So they can't win either way. So the way to do this is to make it as easy as possible. Present your facts logically to them, give them a piece of paper to take away, and start with the government department, not with the minister. Because, again, stuff gets lost in translation. So if you start with the minister, then the minister's going to send it to their staffer. The staffer's going to send it to the parliamentary liaison officer. The parliamentary liaison officer is going to send it to someone high up in the department who's going to pass it down the chain. And by the time it gets to the person who actually does the work, it might say something completely different. So start with the department. Start with someone usually in middle-level management in the department, because that's generally the person who has the time and the enthusiasm to work on your issue, as opposed to working on absolutely everything and your issue is just one thing in their in-tray of 10,000 people asking for changes. So start there and make it really easy for them. Dot points, be really logical. Don't assume that they're out to do something bad, because they're not.
A lot of people listening to this might think, oh, I'm a bit cautious about contacting the department because I'm afraid that they'll target me for audits and things like that as retaliation for me causing them trouble. Does that happen?
I get a lot of people saying that, and my response to that is, if government had the capability of doing that, we would not have the kind of cyber attacks going on right now, because they would have the IT to stop that. So no, they can't do that. First of all, the IT isn't capable of doing it. And secondly, they have all sorts of policies and procedures in place for doing it. In the olden days, you got these rumours where, someone from a department was driving to work and then somebody cut them off or pulled in front of them or something, and they wrote down their number plate and went and audited them. But even then, in those days, if someone tried to do that and if someone complained about it, they would have gotten a lot of trouble. But it's not the way it works. Everything these days is done by targeted programs. So what they will do is they have these people that sit behind the scenes, do all this data stuff, and it's going, okay, so for example, the tax office, if somebody earned under $30,000 a year and claimed, $25,000 of deduction, then we'll audit them. And that's just an example off the top of my head, but that's the kind of way that they target people. Or they go, okay, this year we're going to do everybody with a rental property who claim more in deductions than they claimed as income, and we're going to go through and make sure they're doing the right thing.
That was Elaine Abery, Director of Unravelling Red Tape. Business Essentials Daily is a SoundCartel podcast. Producers are Nick Schildberger, Chris Ashmore, Jeff Waters and myself. Technical production by Pete Letts. I'm Nicole Goodman. Thanks for listening. We'll bring you more Be Daily next week. SoundCartel. This episode was brought to you by Mazars. To find out more, visit mazars.com.au. That's mazars.com.au.